Welcome to Episode 5, Season 2 of The Dave Whitty Show. I'm your host, Dave Whitty. As always, folks, this podcast is brought to you by Lamb's Rum. Lamb's, one of the top choices for Newfoundlanders who love the authentic, smooth taste. Enjoy Lamb's Palm Breeze today with a splash of Coke and lime wedge. Or for something different, try Lamb's Spice on its own on the rocks. Lamb's is the best choice for hard-working Newfoundlanders, and at a great price, find Lamb's Rum at all of your local NLCs. And don't forget, April 3rd to April 30th, with every purchase of a 1750 milliliter of Lamb's, receive 2 free Lamb Sociables. That's a great little deal. Thanks so much to everybody who's tuned in so far. Big thanks to my pal Dan George for coming on last week. It was great catching up with Dan. If you happen to find yourself at the ECMAs, go find Dan. He's playing with a bunch of bands and a bunch of different artists. So got another real fun episode this week with Brad Dunne, who's the local author. Brad's been working as a freelance writer and editor since 2013. His work explores Newfoundland and Labrador's culture and history through horror and gothic fiction. He has published 3 novels, After Dark Vapors, The Gut, and most recently, The Merchant's Mansion. And his nonfiction has also been published in national publications in the Literary Review of Canada, Maisonneuve, and The Walrus. So stick around for that one. We had a great chat all about Brad's new book and a bunch of different cool stuff that in regards to writing books and even how to get published and all sorts of different things. So had a great chat with Brad. Make sure you do stick around for that one. Lots going on over here. Had a fun weekend this weekend myself. Got down to the Newfoundland Growlers game with a bunch of my buddies. I'm not sure if anybody's seen it, but we were the crowd in the corner with the beer pyramid, which was absolutely hilarious. There was 12 of us that went, a bunch of my buddies that kind of grew up with, and one of the guys reached out about a month ago and said, listen, there's 10 or 12 of us going, if you want to come, blah, blah, blah. And so we all went down and we ended up sitting right on the glass, and turned into a hilarious night where we had a beer tower going and they had us up on the big screen, and it was a real fun night. Thanks to the Growlers for hooking us up with some Big Marys afterwards. And if you missed all that, go check the Growlers social media because it was really funny. It was a really funny night at the game, and the game was really fun itself. The Growlers won, and it was really fast, and it was really fun to watch the game from down low on the glass like that. So Growlers punched a ticket to the playoffs. It's going to be really exciting, especially in St. John's here when the playoffs do start. So looking forward to that for sure. Got a real fun show coming up this Thursday. If you are listening right now, it's probably Wednesday. So tomorrow for you, playing at the Ship with my pal Mike Bursey. No advance tickets for this one. We're just doing $10 on the door. Mike's going to open up and I'm going to finish off. And, you know, most folks have the next day off. So nice and easy night. We're going to be playing some tunes and no worries about having to get up early for work the next day or anything like that. So if you are looking for some tunes and looking for a nice evening out, head down to the Ship Pub and come see your boy. What else is going on here? Son of a Critch finale happened, last night for those listening today. Tonight for me, looking forward to catching the last episode. Been really, really enjoying this series, guys. It's been a lot of fun. Mark Critch absolutely nailed it, and all the people who are associated with it, all the actors and all the writers and everybody who's been a part of this. So big congrats to the Son of a Critch crowd. They've been absolutely awesome. The show has been really, really fun. We've been enjoying tuning in every week and looking forward to season 2, which is awesome for not only the show but everybody who's working with it in the province and all that stuff. So hats off to the Son of a Critch crowd. Had a wild weekend down here at my place, downtown St. John's, 2 weekends ago now since we last chatted on the podcast. I was playing a gig at Kelly's and I got a call from Taylor, and she said that there was a house on fire just 3 houses up, and if you know anything about downtown St. John's, all these houses are connected. So it was a pretty spooky evening. The house caught fire. Unfortunately, one of the men inside didn't make it out, which is really, really sad. It was a crazy, crazy night. The house went up, caught up really, really fast, and man, it was crazy night here on Coronation Street. It happened around 11:30 at night, and they were battling the fire all night till like 3:30 in the morning. So just want to send my condolences out to the family of the gentleman who passed away in that house fire. Just 3 houses up from mine. Pretty scary stuff, no doubt. What else was going on? Managed to catch a ton of sports, obviously. This is probably the best time for sports. Besides, well, I'm not going to say besides. They're both really fun times. I mean, the end of September, early October is also a lot of fun because a lot of when, hockey's starting up, basketball's starting up, usually the baseball playoffs are around the corner, and it's always a really fun time, football season, stuff like that. But this is also a really fun time of year. I mean, getting into NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, look, good golf on the go, good baseball. Managed to catch, obviously, Brad Gouju He's been representing Newfoundland and Canada for so many years. Won a silver medal at the World Championships in Vegas. Lost to Team Sweden. But it was a great outing from Team Goujo, and it looks like that's probably going to be their last hurrah as the foursome that they have. So congratulations to Brad Goujo and their team on silver medal. Jays are open up this weekend. This team is so fun to watch. I mean, the Friday night game, if you watched it, it was so fun. They were losing 7-0 and them coming back. There's so much to say about this team. That the offensive power is incredible. I chatted a lot about this with Brad, so I'm not going to dig into it too much. But it was a really exciting weekend of baseball, and I'm looking forward to a whole season of the Blue Jays. I'm really pumped about the Blue Jays for sure. The Leafs secured a playoff spot. Matthews broke a record. Leafs are in a pretty good position right now. Really playing some good hockey. Got about, I think there's 9 games left, so still got lots of time to kind of tune up and get ready for the playoffs. It's going to be a crazy playoffs. I mean, we really need the Leafs to get out of the first round this year. I'm so sick of listening to people. Okay, we'll do it in the playoffs. Okay, well, I really hope that they can do it this year anyways. So obviously going to be tuned into a lot of Leafs hockey over the next couple weeks. The Raptors punch a ticket as well with the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. They'll be playing against the Philadelphia 76ers, which is going to be a great matchup. Joel Embiid and Harden. This is another thing that me and Brad got into as well during our chat. But, just wanted to throw a few things in. I am really looking forward to the Raptors. I think they're going to be a tough opponent for the 76ers, even though they have so much firepower over there. The Raptors are, I think, really underrated defensively, and I think that they have a lot of offensive power as well that goes unheard of. So looking forward to the Raptors and seeing what they can do in this playoffs. Watch the Masters as well. Obviously, a big golf guy. I love watching golf, love playing golf. Bunch of the golf courses are actually opening up in Newfoundland this weekend. I've seen the Wild at Salmonier is opening up, and Pitcher's Pond, which is out close to my cabin, is opening up. I think the Willows is already open up. So great to see that kind of happening, that transition happening into spring here in Newfoundland. But did watch the Masters. Didn't overly find it super entertaining. Obviously a lot of talk about Tiger Woods and all that stuff, but he didn't really have a great weekend. Scott Scheffler, he was just incredible again. Pretty much ran away with it, which didn't really make it a whole or didn't make it very interesting in my opinion. It was fun to watch, don't get me wrong, but he pretty much just took over for the whole weekend, and that was pretty much it. So other than that, guys, that about does it for me. Really looking forward to the show at the Ship this week, and it's Easter weekend, so not much else going on for me musically. Just really looking forward to this one at the Ship on Thursday. So if you are out around, come on down and hang out and listen to a few tunes. Other than that, stick around for a great interview with my pal Brad Dunne. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Brad Dunne to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today, Brad. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, real treat. First off, congrats on the newest novel. Got to be exciting to get that finished and kind of out to the world. How does that feel?
It's good, man. Like third book, but the novelty hasn't worn off yet. So always stoked to get it out there.
Yeah, I would imagine it's got to be similar to you're like the O-Dog right now on Overdrive with the cat coming through. I love that.
Yeah, it's Guillermo.
Hey, Puss. Yeah, it's like, I would imagine it's got to be similar to, something like myself putting out an album. I mean, you kind of work on it. It's a lot of ideas that go into it. There's a lot of different parts and all sorts of things that go into it. And kind of when you get it out, it's then what happens then? You kind of got to start promoting it and try to get it out. What are some of the ways that you would go about promoting like a new novel that you do put out? How does that work?
Well, like everything now, it's like social media is big with the biggest thing. Like, developing your channels. Like I'm pretty big on like Facebook and Instagram. Beyond that, I don't really mess with Twitter because that place is a cesspool. But yeah, like, and then I do like events, like farmers market, getting out there for signings. I also did an event with Memorial University last week. They usually do every year. It's called like the Sparks Literary Festival, but then with COVID, everything got delayed for 2 years. So this year is the first time we've done it now for a couple of years. And I did this event with a couple of other authors and a former prof of mine. So that was cool to get out there and talk about horror in Newfoundland.
Yeah. So, this being your third novel, I mean, your third book, um, titled "The Merchant's Mansion." Let's talk a little bit about the book itself. You know what it's about, kind of where you got the idea, or obviously there's several ideas that go into it, and all that stuff. How does that all unfold for yourself? I mean, how long have you been writing it? Like, and essentially just what is the book about?
Yeah, so the premise of the book is it's basically like a haunted house in Outport, Newfoundland. This dude, the main character named Nick O'Keefe, his parents buy an old like merchant's house, like a merchant's mansion, and the plan is to like redo it as a B&B, as like a retirement project. But then they start acting weird, and he has to step in, and he throughout the story basically finds out that there's like a presence haunting the mansion and kind of messing with his parents, so he's got to save them. And the idea is just like I've always loved haunted house stories, like The Shining, Haunting a Hill House, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wanted to write some kind of story like that, and just also interested in Newfoundland history, so it's just kind of like the two of them just kind of fit in pretty easily. And it actually didn't really take me that long to write this one. I'd say probably like 4 or 5 months all in. I got the draft in. Yeah.
So, like, how does that work exactly? I mean, I'm definitely not familiar in writing books. I'm a writer in a different sense where I write songs, but I mean, a song is only 3 minutes, and sometimes for me as a songwriter, songs kind of fall out fast, or they take a while, and you kind of got to build on different ideas. You got to build on different things. I mean, for someone like yourself, like, do you kind of come up with a basis of where the story is going to start, kind of the middle grounds of it and end, or you just start writing and kind of see how it unfolds? How does that work?
Yeah, kind of, you get different ideas at different stages of the process. Like my first novel, After Dark Vapors, I got the idea for the like basically the climax, like the conclusion first, and then just kind of like unraveling, pulling the strings. But I think this one more started out like as a premise, just like this idea of a haunted house in Outport, Newfoundland, and then it kind of fills in from there. But it's like it's pretty messy a lot of the times. Like you get an idea, and you just file it away, and it just kind of sits on a shelf for weeks, months, years, and then all of a sudden another idea comes along and they click, and you got a story. But I remember like because I used to write songs. I played in a punk band. We used to play a lot of shows together, but a lot of the times it was like when I wrote songs, I found that it was you'd hear a song, like you'd hear like like No Effects, and you think, oh well, like you learn it, and you learn the chords, and you learn the riffs, and you learn the melodies, and it's like, dude, I'd love to write a song like this. And then a couple months later, you're just noodling, and an idea comes across, and you're like, oh well, I can kind of play it similar to what No Effects did. And now you've got a song, right? Like now you're kind of off to the races. But
OTTR.
that's yeah, OTR baby. But yeah, it's a messy process that I'm sure like you probably understand as well. But there's no like each like I've written 3 novels, and I've written a lot of short stories and stuff, and they never really come together the same way. It's always a different kind of journey with each of them, and it's more like just learning to kind of be a bit hands off with it and just let it work its way on its own.
I find it very interesting that it's Newfoundland related. I mean, I find that really neat. Is Newfoundland itself something that you draw inspiration from? I mean, is that where you would kind of come up with some ideas? Do you find any inspiration from any other places or people that you might know, or different things you've seen, like, in Newfoundland?
Yeah, like I love Newfoundland history and culture, and I when I started my writing career, I moved to Toronto, like a lot of people, for a lot of reasons. But I decided to come home because I felt like there were a lot of people who were actually interested in Newfoundland stories, and so I it felt like something that I could embrace, and I know a lot about Newfoundland history just because my family's always been passionate about it. But and I don't need to tell anybody that Newfoundland culture and history is very unique, and it's very fun to explore, and the history is very rich here. And for me, like I write like horror for the most part. And for me, I just felt like a lot of books about Newfoundland were very like the term is literary realism. Like it's very like it's there's not a lot of invention to it, let's say. Like there's nothing like supernatural. It's just kind of like a regular story about people living in a community or something like that. And I just felt like there was room for more supernatural, more invention to the literary scene here. And I think people seem to be interested in reading about it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like what has been the response so far? Not only with this book, but I mean your previous ones as well. What's the response been like? Not only in Newfoundland, because I'm sure you obviously have a lot of support in Newfoundland. With regards to the books and the ideas being based in Newfoundland and stuff like that. But what has the response been like outside of Newfoundland? Have you gotten much feedback from other people like that?
Yeah, like I network through the magazine articles I write and stuff, and people in the mainland, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, that kind of stuff. And I think and a lot of people kind of what they say is like, oh, I didn't know that the history was like this, or like it's a different way of engaging with history that doesn't feel like spoon fed, like the way like the government probably wants, Newfoundland Labrador culture department wants people to engage
like the
with
idea
it.
of maybe basically essentially putting out a video once a year showing that Newfoundland looks like it's sunny all the time when it really isn't.
Yeah, exactly. Like and part of it is like the darker side of Newfoundland history, which I think people find interesting, but also it's just a different way to explore it that I think a lot of people, they see maybe something a bit more traditional, a bit more vanilla, and they're just kind of like turned off by it. Like, but I think people are, again, like they want to learn about Newfoundland culture because they know it's this like unique, weird province in the
Yeah,
country.
why do you think that people are, or why do you think people find that so interesting? Is it because we're so old and there's been so much history, and I mean it's so unique, especially to the rest of Canada in the sense, especially Outport, Newfoundland. I mean, St. John's is gradually starting to kind of turn into, basically other parts in Canada. It could be definitely compared to that, but I mean, Outport, Newfoundland is still very unique. I mean, why do people find that interesting?
Well, I think you said like we were so isolated for so long, and there was like things that kind of hung around, stuff like a lot of the mysticism and pagan stuff from Ireland came over, like with the fairies and that stuff kind of took hold and hung around for generations. And like a lot of like antiquated stuff from old British culture that just kind of got a foothold here and didn't change, but also because we were isolated, just like things grew around us that is different from even like Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. That's very, uniquely ours. Like stuff like, the history of it is complicated, but like the screechin, for example, is very much like a thing that's iconic for Newfoundland. And also like outports, they're all individually, they all have their own little folklores and their own little ghost stories and all that kind of stuff. So it's isolated and it's different from anywhere else in Canada. And to be frank, like I think like a lot of Canadians probably got like a bad rap from us thinking that we're all a bunch of drunken fishermen and that's all we kind of do. But I think when they're interested to dig a little deeper and find these kind of interesting pockets that we have to offer.
Have you had many conversations with people who've maybe read the books and thought, oh damn, this is something that I didn't think, or they've reacted differently than a way you might have thought originally?
Yeah, like my first book, After Dark Vapors, is about like residential school, as a residential school in Labrador, and I think a lot of like Newfoundlanders were surprised that that these things existed in the province. I think a lot of people are very unfamiliar with that, and the extent about some of the stories that happened there. So I think like even Newfoundlanders are unfamiliar with some of their own history because a lot of our history has been neutered
Yeah.
by the government and by the schools. And like I remember in school we never really learned about the Beothics. It was just
No.
kind of like, yeah, there were some people here, and then we came, and then they're gone. uh so like not really into the nitty gritty of what actually happened. So I think now, like, with stuff available on the internet and stuff, people are curious and they're hungry for it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, especially with everything that's gone on in the last couple of years. I mean, with residential schools and stuff like that. I mean, it really kind of has opened up a lot of people's eyes and yeah, like you mentioned. I mean, like not ever really learning about the Beothics or the native side of our provinces has been in- incredible. Really, that it's not really a learning part in our education. I mean, it's really weird actually, but I think it's starting to change now. I think it's slowly starting to transition a bit where people are starting to learn about those type of things, and I mean, they're very important parts of our history. There's no doubt.
Yeah, like a lot of the stuff that I write, it's almost like me wanting to learn about it. So like this book, The Merchant's Mansion, I was always curious about, like, what was it like for people to live with a merchant in the community, because like he basically kind of like controlled the community.
Hmm.
And like I'd recently written an article for the Literary Review Canada about Old Sam.
I read that actually. I was
Yeah.
going to ask you about that, but go ahead.
Yeah, it was just like interesting to learn about how connected Newfoundland was to the slave trade, and how like saltfish would go down to the Caribbean to feed the slaves because it was like a cheap source of food. And obviously, like, there was the triangle
Yeah.
of like England, Newfoundland, the Caribbean, back up to England. And that's why we have, that's why like molasses is so popular here, and
Hmm.
why like dark rum is so popular here. All that stuff came up from the Caribbean. It's
Yeah, I mean, I guess
that's
with that stuff being so easily transported, I mean, same with like that's why the fish was salted because it could be transported and easily used. I mean, and basically they were just trading back the goods back to us. I mean, yeah, it's very very interesting. There's no doubt about that. The artwork for your book, I mean, if you're watching on YouTube right now, for anybody who's watching right now, Brad's obviously his background right now is the cover of his latest book, The Merchant's Mansion, and it's very cool. Can you talk about that a little bit and who did that for you?
so like I got the idea for the cover based on and a lot of like the book itself. I got the idea from, I think it's called Bleak House in Fogo, from the top of my head, but it was a merchant's mansion. It had this cool little like front
Foyer
detail,
or
yeah,
something like
kind of
yeah,
thing. Like this almost looks like a watchtower kind of
sure,
thing
yeah.
on the house, which I thought was really cool. And one of the one of the editors at my publisher, Engine, I kind of said, I'd love to do something like, a spooky looking house. This is kind of the way I wanted to look with this front little watchtower thing. But I kind of wanted to be like, I don't know, like dreamlike.
Hmm.
So she actually made like a paper mache model of the house,
Oh,
and
neat.
then she took a digital picture and then kind of ran it through some software to kind of give it a bit of a surreal kind of feel to it.
So that's something that the publisher like they take on that role, or that's not something that you would commission on its own individual basis.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why like I like to work with a publisher, because I don't I'm not interested in the business side of stuff. Like there's a lot of self-published authors in Newfoundland, and they make good money, but they're really into the business side of it. So, if you're going to do self-publishing, which a lot of authors do, you're going to have to either commission an artist to do the cover for you, or you'll have to, draw on your own skills to do it. I've never been much of an artist, so that's something I delegate to them.
Yeah. I mean, for anybody who's probably listening who's kind of unfamiliar with writing, and I mean, and starting out on a novel and stuff like that, and getting books published and those type of things, like maybe you could talk about a little bit about what the role of a publisher is for someone like yourself, and what they provide and the relationship between both of you.
Yeah, so for me, I've published 3 books with Engine now, and um, I have a relationship with them. And at this point now, it's more like, do you have a book for us this year? And I'll kind of hand it off to them. But it is very much like I do the draft. I'll do the first draft of the novel. I'll give it to them, and they'll either say like, "Oh, can you change a couple things?" or they'll be like, "This is fine. We'll give it to."
Are they ever like, this is shit? Like,
No,
does that ever
I haven't.
happen? Not for you, but I mean, does that happen with other
Yeah,
people? Or I guess it must at some point, does it?
man, rejection is part of the game.
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's in anything in the arts. There's no doubt about that.
Like my first novel, I sent it to Breakwater first, who are the biggest, probably the biggest publisher in Newfoundland, and I didn't expect them to take it. It was just kind of like a moonshot because they don't really do like horror or anything like that. But yeah, I got rejected from them, like, and short stories, all kinds of rejection, and as a freelance writer pitching ideas for stories, you get rejected. So like now, obviously, my first novel with Engine, I went to Engine after Breakwater, and they took it right away. But yeah, like they reject authors too, and they do short story anthologies where they'll reject authors who publish novels with them. So, it's just like you got to just like have a bit of a thick skin when it comes to that kind of stuff, because especially when unless you're like a big name, you're going to face a lot of rejection all the time. Unless you have like a relationship with a publisher and an agent or something like that. So like if someone's listening to this and they want to start sending their stuff out there, I would just say like, first of all, just get used to being told no.
Yeah, no doubt.
And like if someone tells you no, don't throw a tantrum because like you'll burn that bridge and they don't want to deal with you. Like publishers, they have no time or patience to deal with like diva personalities. So like if you get told no, just kind of be like, okay, thanks for your time, and move on. Move on to the next potential publisher. But in terms of what a publisher has to offer versus going the self-publishing route is if they're a real publisher, because there are a lot of predatory publishers who are trying to take your money and are basically just
interesting.
Like you're just doing self-publishing, but they're taking money they're taking a cut for no reason. But like a publisher should be eating the overhead in terms of like hiring an outside editor, because like, I do professional editing work, but you still need someone else to look at it. Like, it's good to get that outsider perspective. And they'll take on the costs for like the cover, production, advertising, all kinds of stuff. And they'll also kind of like hook you up with some, promotional opportunities, even though I kind of reach out and do my own thing, but like you kind of have to get used to doing that anyway. But those are all things that publisher has to offer, on top of like, there's still some, how would I say it? Like snobbery, where like people kind of look down on self-published authors, even though I don't agree with that. But having a name behind you, money talks, and having a name behind you gives you that kind of sense of legitimacy. But like a lot of too, how I benefit from having a publisher is they know the Amazon game and how to advertise on Amazon and how to kind of like boost the algorithm and that kind of stuff, which is like its own beast. Like it entirely is, like Amazon is a giant, and you have to know how to use it, and I have no patience to learn how to be a vendor on Amazon.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. I mean, it's every day is a grind. I mean, with especially doing stuff. So would that be a role that the publisher would take on as well with regards to like shipping out books and all that stuff? Is that something you do or they do as well?
They handle that.
Okay, yeah, nice.
Yeah, like if someone buys a book through the website or through Amazon, like I have nothing to do with any of that. Right. Like I get messages from people like on the mainland. They're like, I ordered your book through blah blah blah. Like, will you sign it? I'm like, man, I don't like touch. I won't even see it. Yeah. Yeah, like I have no idea where that comes from. Like some warehouse in Toronto or something. Like so, yeah. Like people order them, I can't like autograph it and then send it to the mail, unfortunately.
Right. You did mention earlier, I mean, especially like about having, thick skin and being prepared for rejection, but what other kind of advice could you offer up maybe to a young person who's contemplating starting to write a novel or has an idea to start or something like that? Like what kind of, simple advice would you tell somebody who is a younger person who might want to do something like that?
Yeah, like whatever your age, like if you want to start writing, you like this is going to be like kind of stupid sounding, but you just have to write. Like I know, like myself, I went through it, but I know a lot of friends, and they come up to me and they're like, "Oh, you're writing these books. I wish I could write books. I have these ideas, but," and then they kind of like discount their ideas before they even start. And I think like you just got to get over that. Like the sooner you can get over that, the better you'll be. Because
Yep.
like no one starts off doing something well. Like when you pick up a guitar for the first time, like some people, yeah, like some people can make chords quicker than others, but like your first year playing guitar, you're gonna sound like shit. And
Yeah.
you're also not gonna be writing like, you know, original, unique songs your first year. Like you're gonna
Hmm.
be ripping off what you listen to. Like, if you listen to a lot of Red Hot Chili Peppers, and your first couple songs are going to sound like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And if you tried to release it, you'd probably get sued.
Is that similar
But
with regards to writing a novel? Like, is you kind of, obviously you have different authors and stuff who you look up to, and you've read a lot of their books and stuff like that. Is that kind of something that you probably did as a young person as well?
yeah, for sure. Like I've been writing since I was a little kid, and when I was a little kid, I used to write books that were like rip-offs of Goosebumps, basically.
Right.
Just like there's a werewolf at camp, like that kind of stuff, or like you're at the beach and there's a giant squid, and this is all kinds of stuff that like I'd read in Goosebumps or comic books or something. And a lot of people are like that, where it's, and I only like, I don't know if it's Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey. Well, basically, 50 Shades of Grey started out as like a Twilight fan fiction that she put on the internet, and people told her it was good. So she just changed the names of characters and basically published that book. So like she was just ripping off Twilight.
Right.
So like even if you don't even have to be good, like don't even worry about like if it's good or not. Like there's a lot of shitty authors selling a lot of books. So yeah, like just this was something I learned in university when I went to like a lecture on it or something. And basically what they said is that kids up until grade 4 will write stories kind of the same way that they'll play with like blocks or Legos or whatever. And it's at grade 4 that they stop, because that's when they start learning about like grammar and like you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, that's not right. And so they start getting like in their heads like, oh, I can't, it's not fun anymore, basically. And I think that's kind of what, and you just keep going like that until you're an adult, and people are just like afraid to write bad is what it comes down to.
I mean, I can
And
totally relate to that because I feel that as a songwriter. I mean, I felt like when I was 15 or 16 or 17 years, I would write everything and anything. And I always thought it was good. And I find even these days, I find myself struggle more because I'm like, oh man, that doesn't sound like, you pick apart so much. Maybe because I have material out and you're trying to live up to that, or you're worried about what other people think of you. Whereas when you were younger, I didn't really care about that as much. And now I feel like I have a bit more of a career where I feel like I have to put something out a certain way. And yeah, so I can totally relate to that for sure.
yeah, and most people that I meet who tell me they want to write but they just can't bring themselves to do it, it's like, yeah, that's usually what it is they're just self-conscious about the fact that it's either like, you know ripping off something that they like, or it's just not up to their standard. And what I would say is that you don't have to show people like what you write. Like you don't even have to be like a published author to enjoy writing. Like you can just, same
Do it
thing
for
like with
yourself.
musicians.
Yeah.
It's like, so many musicians who just play in their basement, and they're great, and people are like, oh, you should like
Give themselves
make an
joy.
album, and
Yeah.
blah, blah, and they're like, no man, I just like playing. Like it's just something I do. Maybe sometimes I play with some friends and it's fun. And I would definitely encourage that for people. Like if you're just home and you want to write like some story about Batman, just do it. Like no,
Yeah.
no one's going to kick down your door and arrest you. Like just write it, and just like it's something fun to do in your spare time.
Yeah, no doubt. Another real neat thing you do, I mean, you also write for magazines doing different literary reviews and certain things. Like I was kind of doing some research on you beforehand. I seen that real neat article that you mentioned earlier on Old Sam. I seen some other thing on like Nanaimo bars and like there's all kinds of
Yeah.
different things there, which is pretty really cool. I mean, it's all sorts of different things. Um, the one about old Sam was really, really neat. I really enjoyed that. How does that process even happen to the point where like you'll get published in these magazines for these different articles? Do you pitch these to people or do they come ask you for material? Or how does that work?
Sometimes I pitch, like the old Sam article in particular, that's with the Literary Review of Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and like I've published stuff with them before, so now I have like a relationship with them, and every now and then they'll reach out and be like, "Hey, I saw like with old Sam, the editor, my friend was like, hey, I saw that they're changing the cover now. Like, do you want to write an article about that?" And they give me like pretty free range in terms of how I want to take it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like a lot of times, like, and again, if someone's listening to this and you want to break into magazine writing, you know, if you don't have a relationship or you don't have like a networking with some of these, you will have to like pitch them like as a cold call basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we call it the slush pile in publishing. So you'll have to like go to the website, look up like submissions, and they'll have like a guideline for what to do and like follow the guideline. Like that's big time my like advice if you want to break into like magazine writing. Take your time to like go to the magazine and look up like how they want you to pitch stuff, because if you don't do it properly, they'll just ignore you. And
Exactly. Yeah.
3 months later, you'll be like, geez, I wonder what's going on. And they're like, no, we just didn't read your pitch because it's not how we ask you to submit. So like save yourself some wasted effort and do your homework on that. But like pitching is like an art into itself, like learning how to pitch an idea. And I could probably talk about that for like an hour, but basically just Google like how do I pitch an article idea to a magazine, and you'll find some stuff. And usually, what it comes down to is you have to do like a fair bit of work, like on speculation. Like you can't just be like, "Hey, I'd love to write an article about old Sam," and then the magazine will probably be like what? Like what's that supposed to mean? Like what's the story? So you know you'll have to do some digging on your own and find some kind of angle.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, like another article that I wrote about a couple of years ago for a magazine called Maisonneuve in Montreal was about you know the history of the Screechin, and like even most mainlanders even know what the Screechin is. So like you can't just be like, I'm going to write an article about Screechin. They'll be like, well, what's the new angle you're taking? And so the idea was like, you know, the Screechin is about spoofing the idea of the goofy newfie, and it's kind of like a anthropological thing where smaller cultures come up with these little rituals to welcome people from larger cultures. So like the Screechin developed I think like, well, on the one hand there was like the actual shot which happened during World War II when like American and Canadian soldiers were coming here and bars would kind of give them the rum. But then the guy Keith Vokey, I think that's his name, Keith Vokey,
Yep.
at Christians, his dad was developing a kind of little ritual thing for like teachers, and the liquor board found out about it and we're like, hey, we'd like to like take your idea and combine it with this thing with the Screech. And this would have been the 60s. So like kind of like getting a bit more into like an alternative history, let's say, of the Screechin. You know, because I think the liquor board and a lot of bars like to play up a kind of like romanticized history of it, which isn't really accurate. But
Right.
yeah.
Is that something like obviously that's two different kind of ways of writing. I mean, your novel is a fictitious book where you create everything in it, whereas your a review of something like Old Sam or The Screechin or something is you know, it's the opposite way. I mean, you're literally reviewing something or taking your own thoughts on what that process may be. Is there one you prefer, or are they both just kind of like different outlets of ways of writing?
Yeah, they're like different ways. They're like different ways, different muscles to flex,
Mm-hmm.
different ways to use your brain. Basically, like some people, obviously, they only write nonfiction or they only write fiction, but I enjoy both, and you know, a lot of the fiction I write is like informed by the nonfiction stuff I'm interested in. Like, so obviously, like Newfoundland history, I do a lot of research into that, and it just kind of comes out in my fiction. Because like fiction is like, it's just, there's no rules. Like you can just write
Exactly,
about
yeah.
whatever you want. Like, you know, if you were like, I want to write a book about haunted houses, merchants in Newfoundland, and Alzheimer's disease, someone would be like, what the hell do those three things have in common? But if you put it in a novel and you attach it to a story, you can just let your imagination run wild, basically.
Yeah, no, that I find that very, very interesting. Absolutely. Um, I know recently you were at the farmers market just the past weekend promoting the book. Is anything else like that planned in the future coming up, or and how does that work for yourself at the market? You kind of just hang out and chatting with folks who are stopping by for a chat and looking up the book and stuff like that.
Yeah, like we'll have a table there.
Yep.
Engine has a table, and they also have different authors that kind of come each weekend. And so I was there, and you know, selling the book, and people who just come across the table start up a chat. I don't know if I have anything officially planned, but I've done other events like the fall. I was at a convention in Marystown, which was a lot of fun. And this summer there's going to be a couple. Sci-Fi in the Rock is big.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like Avalon Expo, uh, Gander Geek Fest. There's another one in Clarenville. So a lot of these kinds of things are, well, first of all, it's all coming back because COVID is finally
Yeah, I kind of
dying
wanted to
off.
ask you about COVID as someone like yourself and what you do. I mean, did COVID play a role in slowing you down, or did it help you in any way, or how did that kind of work? Because like obviously for somebody like myself, I couldn't get out and perform, but I mean, was there any things that kind of played a role for you to, yeah, like you say, either slow you down or maybe you had some extra time to kind of work on new things or new ideas?
Yeah, like all the conventions were
True,
basically
yeah.
canceled. Like Sci-Fi has been canceled 2 years in a row, so that's big. And um, doing like panels and stuff at those events are all great ways of promoting. And also like, you know, chapters go
Mm-hmm.
there, and we've also had launches at like bars. And I think when we launched Terra Nova, which is
At
an
the
anthology.
at the embassy, wasn't it? I believe.
Yeah, so we did
Yeah.
that at the embassy. That was like when the first wave had finally slowed down, and they were
Yeah.
like, well, you can go to bars if you wear a mask, and you got to contact tracing, and there's all
Yep.
kinds of rules about all that kind of shit. So that we did that when that finally started to cool off a bit. So but yeah, like my day jobs that I've worked during COVID, none of that stopped. So it was just like, oh, I kind of wished I'd gotten to take some time off so I could work on other projects. But
Yeah, no doubt. For anybody who's listening at home, where can they find the book?
best place is like the farmers market and Amazon. If you look up me up on Amazon, but I think too, like we usually got books at Elaine's bookstore downtown, and sometimes chapters, but chapters can be a bit of a nuisance dealing with in
Really
terms of like
interesting.
local publishers. Yeah, but I don't want to bash
No,
chapters too
no, no.
much because the people there have been very nice to me, but I wish like the company would just be a bit more chill about.
Yeah, you'd think like, I mean, especially, I mean, how can I word this? No, never mind. I'll leave it. I mean,
Basically, they take a big cut of your profit.
I understand that.
What it
Yeah,
comes down to, right?
I just mean like you know, there's probably a lot of writers and stuff like that from Newfoundland that could probably fill out quite an amount of and sell quite a few books. I mean, from there, but it's like I was trying to think of a comparison in something else, but I couldn't quite get it. Anyways, so yeah, so you can get the book online, obviously, and at farmers market and all that stuff. So that's great. So yeah, by all means, make sure you do check that out if you are listening at home. I noticed
It's also on Kindle Unlimited if anyone has.
Okay,
that.
cool, right on. I got to ask you because as I'm chatting with you right now, you do have a Blue Jays jersey on. Did you manage to catch any of the games the weekend?
It's funny. My cousin, my cousin Craig Edmonds, he was up there. I think he saw like at least two of the games, but he was there for opening night, which was
Which
Friday
was
night.
insane.
And
One of the most
yeah,
insane baseball games. There was like playoff baseball.
I went to bed at like, and it was 7-0, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, Jesus, poor Craig went and took the trip to Toronto, and they're
Oh,
getting
he went up
bombed.
from Newfoundland.
Oh yeah, and
Oh man.
he
Well, he
was there.
got a
I'm
good
like,
game. Yeah, you just
yeah, and I was like, poor Craig. He went to opening night, and they're getting just shit in the bed. And then I wake up next morning, and then they're after winning like 10-8 or something. I was like, holy fuck!
yeah.
Craig saw one of the best opening nights in
Yeah.
history.
Well, I mean, it's especially with COVID being on the go the last couple of years, there hasn't been full. The stadium hasn't been full. I think that was the first home opener since 2019 in Toronto. It's actually their first. What was it I read? The first first game of the season that they won since 2013, whether it be on the road or at home. So even that alone is an interesting fact. I mean, so yeah, what a great game to get up to. I think it's going to be a really fun season this year. I'm really hoping I can get up myself and catch a few games. I mean, the lineup is, you just can't mess with this lineup. It seems like any single night. I mean, they can bat around the ball. They can hit, hit for average, and they also hit for power as well, which is very exciting to be watching. Hopefully the rotation, I know we were chatting a little a couple days ago in group chat about the pitching rotation, and hopefully that doesn't let us down, because it seems like that's what kind of happened on Sunday past there. I mean, once they start getting rolling here, it should be interesting. Obviously it's been a long off season off and stuff like that, but hopefully the pitching rotation is I think that's going to be the key here to it all.
Yeah, they can't expect Buys to be hitting 10 runs a game.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
There's going to be games you need to get some starting pitching, for God's sakes. Like, come on.
I know you're a big hoops fan too, so I figured I'll ask you while I got you here. They basically announced, I mean, I think is the regular season over now? I think it ended last night, I think. Yeah, because the playing games start. I mean, folks listening at home right now will be listening on Wednesday, and we're recording here on Monday the 11th. I think the playing games start Wednesday, and it looks like the Raptors got the Sixers, which is going to be a crazy series, I think. Obviously the Sixers were just in town in Toronto last week. Raps squeaked out a big win against them. I mean, I think they can go up against them. It's going to be interesting to see how Embiid and Harden play. Obviously they're two big pieces in Philadelphia there. Who was I seeing? Thibault on Philadelphia. He's unvaccinated, so he won't be able to play in the games in Toronto. He's a big defensive key for them. So I think it's going to be a good series. I seen Shaq last night said the Raptors are going to get swept, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think they got a good chance to take the series. Like, this isn't the Dwayne Casey Raps where
no, that's right,
find ways to lose. Like they find ways to win this, and I think they're like 3-1 against Philly this season,
right?
They're a really good defensive team. Who?
Oh man, she's one of the best in the league. Absolutely.
They seem like Nick Nurse seems to have Embiid's number. Like,
I know.
It seems like he just always eats his lunch, and I don't know, man. Like Harden doesn't seem to be his old self.
And they gave up so much to get him, man.
It seems like he's like doing this like pass first thing now, like, which is like, he's a good playmaker, but that's not the best version of him. Like, he should be shooting like that step back three he does. He just doesn't seem to be doing it anymore. I don't know what's his deal is, and he's not getting the fouls he used to. So
I'll ask you, what's your prediction on the first series
for Toronto?
Yep, Raptors and Sixers.
I like if Raptors win, I think it'll take them like 6 or 7 games. And I also think like Doc Rivers is going to find a way to lose too.
Yeah.
So I could see them taking it in 7. But like if things don't go according to plan, I could see them like probably losing in 5 if like Harden and Embiid start like really clicking.
Yeah. No
but
doubt.
yeah, like it will be a big deal that they lose Matisse Thybulle for 2 to 3 games. Like, that is a big piece of their puzzle.
Did you see the Lakers are actively recruiting head coach Nick Nurse?
I don't think they're allowed to even talk to him. Unless Masai says so.
Yeah.
So I think that's like
LeBron talk.
them trying to satisfy LeBron and what's his name, his agent, the agent who seems to have like insane amount of power in the league.
Well, I guess if you have LeBron, you probably do have somewhat of a bit of power, anyways.
He also represents Ben Simmons.
Oh,
so like he seems to have a lot of drama going on.
I seen that there's talks of him coming back for the first round. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work out either, but it'll be interesting. What do you? I'm going to ask you one more prediction question. Blue Jays, how many wins this year?
Man, I would be disappointed if they don't scratch 100.
Like, that's right. I'm about there too. Yeah.
You know, if they're not like if they don't get up to 100, they probably won't make the playoffs. So like,
no.
I definitely, if they're not like at least second seed in that division, I'll be very disappointed.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that was great, Brad. Thanks so much for popping on. This is something I've been doing. I mean, every new episode on this, the second season, I've been doing kind of a rapid fire question segment, which is nothing to do with kind of the reason I have people on. It's just more of a bit of fun and kind of get to know the people who I'm chatting with. You okay with that? We got 10 rapid fire questions. You okay with that?
Yeah. No Leafs talk. Didn't want to go there.
Not yet.
All right. Yes, man. Give her.
Actually, it's funny because I was reading. What was I on? I was on. I guess you have like a blog, Brad, on WordPress or whatever, and I started in as I read it last year on your just absolute trashing of the Leafs after they got. Knocked
I felt
out
very
by the
spicy
Habs.
when I read that. When I wrote that.
Well, I felt spicy reading it. I was just like, ugh. Anyways, the Habs got 51 points this year, so I don't really care. No, that was awesome. Thanks so much, obviously, for chatting all about the new book. I mean, if anybody is listening at home and want to check that out, by all means, look up Brad Dunne and look up the Merchants Mansion and support local, of course. That's what we're all about here. All right, you ready for the 10 rapid fire questions? Bradley Dunne. Question number 1, Big Mac or Baconator?
Baconator.
Ooh, I would have went the opposite. I'm a big Mac guy. What is the last song that you listened to?
I listen to music all day at work. It was, I think, something by Thelonious Monk.
Okay. All right. Would you rather cheer for the Leafs in a playoff series or never eat pizza again?
I'd have to swallow my pride and cheer for the Leafs.
Yeah, as a guy, I like that. I love it. Who's Brad Dunne's favorite hip hop artist?
Like of all time?
All time.
I'm 50-50 between BC Boys and Wu-Tang. I'll go BCs.
BC Boys at 51%.
Yeah.
What would be your favorite restaurant to go out to in St. John's? Or Mount Pearl or CBS or anywhere really let's say Newfoundland, sure.
There's a spot up in Greats Cove called Greats Cove Studio. There's also like an artist retreat there and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'll just plug it because the place is awesome. And I love Baconator Trail, that area. But the guy, he's from Greats Cove originally, but he moved to Korea to teach, and he met a woman from Louisiana, I believe. And so they came home to Greats Cove to raise their kids.
Yeah, they do like artist residencies out there. I think like musicians go out there and will spend a week or so, and it's like a writing retreat, and then you get to do performances as well. It's a really great place.
Yeah, they got artists and they got musicians, and the food is like a blend of like Newfoundland traditional, like Cajun Louisiana stuff, and even a little bit of like Korean. So the food like is amazing. I love it.
Do you still have a place in Northern Bay? Your family?
Yeah, my family. My mom's family is from Northern Bay, and we have a family cabin there basically.
Do you get out there often at all, or
not as much as I'd like?
Yeah.
Hopefully every summer I say this is the summer I'm gonna get out there every weekend, and I don't do it. But
what's the little fish and chip spot there? Hogan's, man. Hogan's is good, man. That is
Hogan's unreal.
That is some good
my
fish and
heart
chips.
broke when I saw it burn down, but
I think it's
all rebuilt now.
It is, yeah. I think it's all rebuilt and back up and running. So happy to hear that, because you gotta hit a fish and chips when you're out in Northern Bay. I mean, it's one of the best.
Unreal.
All right, I've got a mathematical equation for you. Okay.
Oh fuck. Okay.
You can write it down if you want. It's not too hard, but it's pretty straightforward.
All right, I'll do my best.
25 times 4. Don't say the number out loud. Just
okay.
you keep it in your head. So 25 times 4 minus 18 plus 96 equals
plus what?
25 times 4.
Okay.
Minus 18.
Yeah.
Plus 96.
168?
Did I fuck that up? I gotta check. Oh my god, this is the best. Oh man, I'm actually dying. Minus 18 plus. Oh man, it's not even what you said either, but it is wrong.
We're just both dummies.
Yeah. Oh man, that was the dumbest. All right, let's move along here. Simpsons or Family Guy?
Simpsons.
What's your favorite NoFX song of all time?
Decline.
Oh,
I don't know if that's cheating, but
nah, man, it's their song. It is what it is. Yeah.
It's like a whole album, but yeah, I fucking love Decline.
What is the last movie you saw in theaters?
It's called X.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's a cool movie. It's like a horror movie, kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And last question in the rapid fire segment: do you know what time BB is on tonight?
12 EO.
Yeah, yes. I love it. Thanks so much for doing this, Brad, man. It's been a real treat catching up with you. Really appreciate you taking the time, man. Always a laugh. Make sure you do check out Brad Dunne. Check out the new book, The Merchant's Mansion. Really appreciate it, man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right, we'll catch up with you soon, brother. Cheers. Huge thanks to Brad for coming on and talking all about his new book, The Merchant's Mansion. Was a great chat with him and a lot of great information in there. I mean, for anybody who's maybe thinking about starting to write or has an interest in that, I think there's a lot of really good information in there. And if you are, a fan of local authors and horror and gothic fiction, by all means, check out Brad and check out his other books, After Dark, Vapors, and The Gut as well. That about does it for me, guys. Not too much else going on. Really excited about the show at the ship, as I mentioned in the intro. Head on down to the ship Thursday night, and we'll see you then. And other than that, from downtown St. John's, Newfoundland, I'm Dave Whitty. Peace.